Greetings, kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome to our world of darkness. It's Metaplot Monday, and given that last clan discussion last Thursday was on Clan Ravno, I've decided to take a couple of leaps ahead in the Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition book and skip several of the other lore sheets and go on to the Week of Nightmares, which is a turning point for not only Clan Ravno but also the entirety of the World of Darkness. So, why have I decided? Well, it's obvious that since I did discuss Clan Ravno last Thursday, that this would be the next logical step. And yes, I do agree with that. But I'm primarily doing this because a viewer by the name of Ravanna, funny enough, had this to say as a comment on my video. My favorite clan, only because of the Indian Indus Valley clan origin lore, and there's a lot more to the stuff, potentially when mixed with the stories of the Eastern Shen, the kindred of the East, etc. Makes sense that official chemistry is no more in V5, as the creator of the power self-annihilated. But I can't be the only person who really hates V5 amalgam disciplines. It just feels very messy. Very interested in your Week of Nightmares video. I know you're limited on time, but please look into the Yama King Yomi connections of the battle. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. And I have been. And today is going to be a little bit more of an adventure than the usual Metaplot Mondays as we go through the lore sheets. Because the Week of Nightmares touches on so much more than just Vampire the Masquerade. More than just V5. It touches on every aspect of the World of Darkness. From vampire to werewolf to Kwai Jin to wraith to demon. Everything. Fae. Everything. It is the turning point. It is the nexus of the World of Darkness as it comes to main power plots. And I find it interesting that most storytellers either wrap everything that they have in the Week of Nightmares or completely ignore that it happened. And that's sad. But that being said, before we go on this grand journey that I do plan on taking us, and we will have some light differences when it comes to the production itself, because I have several articles and things that I would like to look over while doing this, and I would like to take you on that journey with me, because I did, Ravanna. I did look into the Yama King entanglement and how amazing this is. Now, you are 100% allowed to have your thoughts on the 5th edition amalgams, and they do seem kind of messy. I'm not going to say that they don't. I'm satisfied with them due to the fact that the disciplines all come from the Book of Nods. You know what? No. We will handle that next Monday. We will take a break from lore sheets and we will discuss disciplines and amalgams and why the differences have occurred. I don't want to rush through such a rich bit of lore that we can definitely cover later. So, on that, let's go ahead and hop right into page 395 of the Vampire the Masquerade core book, the lore sheet for the Week of Nightmares. Kindred debate when exactly the Week of Nightmares fell, with some claiming it landed just prior to the turn of the millennium, while others conflate conflate it with the supposed commencement of Gehenna. In truth, the week of nightmares sprawled across years, sweeping up several thousand vampires in its wave. During the week, an impossibly ancient vampire arose and purged its own clan, the Ravno. Thin-blooded vampires emerged with omens and portents as the red star and Thelios blazed in the night sky. You witnessed the mania of the Week of Nightmares and survived it, manipulated the chaos to your own advantage, or you study the actions of those who did. Now you watch for signs of doom to come. This is a fun lore sheet because, again, not only does the Week of Nightmares completely wrap itself around the entirety of the World of Darkness, this allows you to put yourself directly in the center of that plotline. Putting one point into this background gives you oral history. You have heard and told the tales of the Week of Nightmares countless times, and you know exactly what to embellish and which part to conceal. Your telling of the tales is popular in Elysia, where you are sometimes invited to speak as historian and entertainer. Important kindred from all over come to hear your retelling. Add 3 die to performance dice pools to test to tell the story. You know things so well that you can use this as an entertainment value. You can use this to gain trust from lore seekers. You are, at least on the Week of Nightmares, on the same scale as Beckett and other kindred historians. That can be useful to be wanted to be in certain areas for specific things. Imagine being an anarch who happens to be a scholar of this, who is invited to Camera Elysiums on time to time to be able to get in. How much you could learn. Ravno's remains. 2 points into this background. Prior to the Week of Nightmares, the Ravno were a clan. Now they have little more than a bloodline. You know some Ravno remnants, and perhaps share their grudge against the Gangrel, who left them to annihilation. I was reading that one wrong. You have 3 dots of Mala, representing this group of contacts. They carry news and warnings to you, and can perhaps be convinced to cast mighty illusions once per chronicle. But association with them is frowned upon if discovered. That's pretty useful, especially now since with the V5 companion we have rules for how Ravno work and how chemistry works. So that is a pleasant thing to have. 3 points into the background gives you I was there. You didn't just hear about it. You were on the front line. Your reputation as a survivor and on-the-spot veteran of the Week of Nightmares grants you status among kindred historians, occultists, Ravno, and Gehenna cultists alike. Once per story, you can use the status to earn a minor boon from one of those groups, or from a prominent courtier in the domain with a sudden interest. This makes it pretty interesting, especially if you are a follower of the novels, of the clan novel series, because this could make you acquaintances with Hesha, the Setite, for instance. This gives you a lot of possibilities. Boons are the currency of the vampire world, after all. 4 points will give you the Red Star, Anthelios, NASA designation 28978 IXO IXION Ixon. I'm assuming that's just a designation of numbers. Called Wormwood, harbinger of Gehenna, still glows in the sky, to your eyes at least. You believe it looks back at you, changing you somehow. Once per story, you can either reduce your hunger to a rating of 2 or gain a die to a pool of 1 discipline for the night by staring at the star for at least 10 minutes. That's interesting as well. The idea of being able to stare up at the star and then all of a sudden calm your beast. To be able to bring it down to a dull roar. Or to be able to boost your effectiveness in using your disciplines for the night. That's useful. The blood of Zephythasura is 5 points into this background. The Ravno-Antediluvian met final death in July of 1999 at the hands of parties unknown, armed with advanced weaponry and the power of the sun. Before he died, he drained Vitae from all his clan, driving them to frenzy and cannibalism. In his death throes, thick, sentient ropes of his Vitae stained the ground in Bangladesh, where he fell. The noonday sun did not destroy it all. You own a small vial containing the blood of the Ravno-Antediluvian. What you do with this Vitae is up to you, and what it does to anyone who imbibes it is up to the storyteller. Of course, it's level 5 of the background that gives you the most interesting things to do. As a player, I can see the fun of having that on you. But what happens when someone drinks it is by and large one of the most exciting things for a storyteller to take advantage of. This is a game-changing event. There are no rules for something like this. What happens when a high generation kindred of some other clan drinks the low condensed power in an antediluvian's vitae? It's unprecedented, and surely will make an interesting outcome, given a good imagination. So, what else can we learn about the Week of Nightmares? Well, I personally learned about the Week of Nightmares by first reading the Storyteller's Guide for the LARP editions. I forgot LARP. I don't know how. It's how I started. It's where I began. In the Storyteller's Handbook, in the Laws of the Night series for Mind's Eye Theater, it goes into detail on the things that happened. Now, then, when I started asking questions from my storytellers, I got mixed results depending on the game. I either had storytellers who said, "Oh, don't worry about it, that's not a thing here," or I had ones who told me that it shaped everything. From what I understood, the Week of Nightmares caused the Ravno, as their antediluvian fell, to lose themselves in frenzy and cannibalism. They would track themselves down just to destroy each other. Some storytellers, again, had it last 2 or 3 days, as stated in the Week of Nightmares information. Other storytellers turned that into the new clan flaw permanently, that if a Ravno ran into another Ravno, they were doomed to eternally frenzy and attempt to cannibalize. Not only creating a new generation of stronger Ravno, but a smaller generation of stronger Ravno. Because even if you went to embrace a child, you would eventually end up attacking them, or they would end up attacking you. Basically, they were doomed. And given the new Ravno clan bane, where if they sleep in the same place in any given haven within 8 days, they also will feel the horrible torture that Zapathasura went through on his death throes. But moving right along from that, I went ahead and I looked up some. There's that light change. I went ahead and I looked up some information on the fandom pages of the WhiteWolfFandom.com, the Week of Nightmares, White Wolf Wiki. And what this says is that the Week of Nightmares, or Week of Nightmares, I'm not really sure why things are placed in such a way, but the Week of Nightmares most likely took place between June 28th and Saturday, July 4th in 1999. It is the name given by vampires of a week in which Zapathasura, antediluvian of the Ravno clan, awakened. This is generally seen as the beginning of the final nights, the time of signs and portents leading to Gehenna. That is a very interesting thing. And it goes on to talk about the different things that happened. And this is interesting because when we think about what happened, those of us who read the clan novels will go into a massive storm that rampaged, Hurricane Justin, a typhoon that came through and wrecked Bangladesh. Okay? But why? To my knowledge, the Ravno didn't have control over weather. They don't have Khaldunism or types of thaumaturgy. But what had happened was what actually happened was the desecrated, shriveled body of that master of fortitude and illusion crawled out of its grave, wherever it was, and decided that it was going to walk and cause chaos and destruction for one reason or another. I am not 100% sure on why this happened, but he did come across 3 Cathayan warriors. Now, if you would like to listen to this,
Bodhisattva.
Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva, they're beings who have reached nirvana, have reached enlightenment in Buddhism. That's where it came from. To be direct, a person who has attained prajna, or enlightenment, but who postpones nirvana in order to help others to attain their enlightenment. Isn't that nice? Basically, Bodhisattva, if I'm pronouncing that right, I believe I am, are Kwaijin that have reached the final stage of their chosen dharma. These enlightened Kwaijin have removed themselves from the larger world of politics and social interaction and are used to help enlighten others. They are damn near antediluvians, if not Methuselah, on the Kwaijin side. So you have to consider 3 effectively antediluvians of the Wangquei or Kwaijin end up fighting him. Now, they also suffer from debilitating effects from the sunlight. So they conjure the storm. They conjure the hurricane that wraps around them so they can continue fighting into the day. That that is what happened. Now, where does the Yamiwan come from? Well, that specifically translates to thousand hells. Now, the Yomiwan, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this correctly. That literally, as I said, it translates to thousand hells. It's an artificial spiritual dimension created by the Yama Kings. And just to give you a little bit of a idea on the Yama Kings, the Yama Kings, it's a generic term employed by the Kwaijin referring to various malignant spirit beings that rule over the thousand hells. So, what exactly does that mean? Well, these Bodhisattva. I'm going to have to keep using the pronunciation guide to help me with that every time I go to talk about them. The Bodhisattva very well may be considered Yami Kings. But, due to everything else, so is another individual by the name of Ravanna in Lanka. Now, Lanka, the demon city of the Rakshas, apologies, they reside over the souls of the violent. And it's kind of interesting because the Yama Kings, during the week of nightmares, psychics received images, dreams of various Yama Kings fighting in battle. The Monkey King, the Crane, the Dragon, the Tiger. These spirits that represented the Yama Kings. Now, because of this, they were receiving images of the Ravno Antediluvian warring amongst several of those high-level Kwaijin. In these fugues, the Ravno Antediluvian is explicitly identified as Ravanna, not as the actual Antediluvian, but as Ravanna. That sounds very strange, but in Clan Book Ravno details 5 children of the Ravno progenitor. Among them is Ravanna. This child throws his whole lot in with demons. He ends up practicing dark thaumaturgy and infernalism. He abandons his master, but not before tempting the Ravno Antediluvian into infernalism. It's possible that after millennia, this child became the Yama King known as Ravanna. Now, does that mean that Ravanna came back as one of the, and I'm going to use it again,
Bodhisattva.
The Bodhisattva. Does that mean he came back as one of the Bodhisattva to fight his sire? Or is it possible? Is it possible at all? And let's just see if I can find what I was going to see here. Is it possible that the Ravno Antediluvian himself is Ravanna? Is the Yama King of the violent dead? And is the true Zapathasura the progenitor of the Ravno clan? Is it possible that he himself is actually a second generation? Because Drakian could have been the true Ravno progenitor and a second generation vampire. Ravanna, while still a powerful antediluvian, could be a vampire of the third generation and the founder of the modern day incarnation of the clan. Now, what do we have on Drakian? Drakian is one of many names used to describe the Ravno progenitor. Drakian, stop it. Drakian was the name of a thief that was embraced by Irad, making Drakian a third gen, in order to spy on the third generation. Irad suspected the other third generation neonates of plotting against the three members of the second generation and their sires. Drakian, for his part, took to the plot like a fish to water. He was, at heart, a selfish man, and becoming one of the typically selfish Cainites only deepened that trait. Before long, however, he joined the third generation cabal that sought the heart's blood of the second generation. It is said that Drakian was the one who tempted the Gangrel antediluvian to join, which led to the attack on the second generation. He personally led the assault against Irad. Sources do not say whether Irad or Enoch or Zillah were destroyed, but the Great Flood followed swiftly on the heels of the third generation's betrayal. In the aftermath, each antediluvian was cursed with his or her participation in the assault upon their sires. Drakian, as punishment for his selfishness and short-sightedness, was cursed to never know satisfaction. In search of the elusive quality, he followed the one member of the third generation who had not been cursed into the east to see what that other had allegedly found. So basically it says that they had followed Salat to the east. Considering the accusations of infernalism, that's kind of interesting considering the revelations of the bloodlines created by Salat, don't you think? Now, other things that you should probably be aware of is what the V5 timeline says. And this pretty much says the same thing that it says in the book. Kindred debate when exactly the Week of Nightmares fell. Some claim to have landed just prior to the turn of the millennium, while others conflate it with supposed commencement of Gehenna. In truth, the Week of Nightmares sprawled across years, sweeping up thousands of vampires in its wave. During the week, an impossibly ancient vampire arose and purged its own clan, the Ravno. The thin blood vampires emerged with omens and portents at the red stars. Antheos blazed in the night sky. The Ravno antediluvian met final death in July of 1999 at the hands of parties unknown. But those other parties that were unknown are not fully unknown by us out of character, because the Week of Nightmares spurred off what happened with the attack of the, using it again,
Bodhisattva.
The attack of the Bodhisattva. They were also joined in by the technocracy, who use orbital mirrors, satellites, to concentrate the power of the sun and rain holy hellfire down on top of Zapathasura, killing him and painfully scarring his clan for the rest of their unlives, short or not. Now, other things that happened during the Week of Nightmares, and this is also marked down on the White Wolf Wiki, I'm reading there right here. A red star, visibly only to supernatural creatures, appeared in the sky. It's known as Anthelios. We've talked about it a couple times just now. Or the eye of the worm to the guru, or who sees the sign of the apocalypse, kindred, come to call it wormwood, and see it as a sign of Gehenna. The Cathanes know it as the eye of Balor. The mages dub it Telos. Those with advanced supernatural senses, such as Auspex level 2 or higher, for example, see it as the brighter than Venus, surrounded by a halo like a comet. All who are able to see it know instinctively that it is evil. A pup, a fabled perfect Metis, was born on the last day of the week of nightmares to Metis Guru. The Avatar storm began in the Umbra. It's been suggested that the technocracy's bombs, capable of disrupting the spirit world, contributed to the instability of the Tempest, and therefore the sixth great maelstrom later that year. Zapathasura's death blasted open long-sealed trods in the dreaming, releasing the denizens, the Athene, to once more walk the autumn world. The Naraka and Athene that made their home in the dreaming around Bangladesh were transformed utterly by the cataclysm, reborn to embodiment of destruction, with all memory of what they once were lost. Now, what exactly does that mean? Because I'm throwing out a lot of fun words. The Athene. Let's see. The Athene. The Athene is an old word for fae, denizens of a different race. The term is sometimes used to refer to all denizens everywhere. That's interesting. Okay, I was unaware of that. I'm happy to learn new things. The Naraka, however, are one of those denizens. They're one of those Athenes. So, what do we have on them? In the summer of 1999, the dreaming surrounding Bangladesh nearly disappeared, destroyed by fire from the sky. As the dust settled, the Naraka entered the autumn world. Like children, the first thing they beheld was their mother, Kali, the Hindu goddess of destruction. The scent of the destroyer lay thick in the air. Seeing the carnage, Kali's newly born offspring understood their nature. Their bodies existed as naked nightmares wandering the uninhabited wastelands. At first, they had no knowledge of finality's chill. As they wandered beneath Samvarta, the doomsday cloud, corpses and ruins hold no disbelief. They didn't remember what the land looked like before their mother shaped it into her image. Vaguely, they felt their existence was a legacy of fears and beliefs of what had once existed. This event caused fae made of sheer nightmares. Not banal, just nightmares. True monstrous fae. It also suggests that the technocracy's bombs were directly responsible for opening the cracks in the abyssal prison crafted to hold the fallen angels. Could you imagine if all 13 of these rose? What would have to be done? Even if the world survived, new monsters would come. In the Apocalypse source book, the Last Battleground scenario suggests the following the Week of Nightmares. There is no longer an Umbra where the spirit nukes went off, suggesting the level of devastation from the weapon was catastrophic. That's not really supposed to be considered canon, but it was written. I don't really see how we could ignore that. being an aspect of the canon. Either way. The Battle of the Yamakings, as I was reading, seems very interesting. Basically, to go over it, the Yamakings are very powerful and hold territories in the outer reaches of the yin and yang worlds. They are known as Banes in the West, while those of Yin are called Malthians by Western wraiths. They are supreme wardens of Yamiwan. And just to let you know, Yamiwan is again what I said, the Thousand Hells. They're largely fallen servants of the august personage of Jade, who, discovering that chi could be extracted from human souls through torture, adopted such techniques to exact that energy. Generally, the only requirement to be a Yama King is to own real estate in the Yamiwan. While some, such as Tao Mao, probably butchering that, are actually corrupt and fallen former judges of the dead, others are merely corrupt spirits in general. Mao was originally an Enyu judge of the dead, made bitter and twisted by Yamato occupation of his island. And some, Hoya no Fukami and Yen Lo, appear to follow their original duties to a greater or lesser extent. The Yami Kings also include beings from other places, such as corrupt mortal sorcerers, or possible vampires, such as Ravanna. That is a very, very interesting thought, is that the antediluvian idea. Because even if Ravanna is the child of Draken, either way, whether Draken was a third generation embraced by Irad, or Draken was a second generation who embraced Ravanna, it does not matter. If they were alive before the flood, they are antediluvians. The curse of generations, which is not something that usually gets mentioned. I personally have started using that in my plot lines a few years ago. The idea that the generations didn't become weaker until Cain made it so. He eventually wanted the bloodlines to die out, but didn't want to actually kill them himself. So he made it so that every time they embrace, they get weaker and weaker and weaker. Which is why you find certain things such as the Khaldun ritual of the bridegroom, where you can embrace and it brings your child up to your own level. You negate the curse of generations. Or things such as the Leonin, who, when they embrace, they become weaker. Basically, what had happened there was an exaggeration of the curse. The idea that Cain himself, or whoever, cursed the antediluvians, the vampires who were around pre-flood, regardless. Cain is technically an antediluvian. The second generation are technically antediluvians. If there are any fourth generations alive before the flood occurred, and they survived, they're antediluvians. So it does not really matter what generation things started at. Your generation starts to decline after you're antediluvian. If individuals of the third generation can affect the mythology of other groups, such as the Wan Kuei or the Kuai Jin, can affect their legends, can affect their prophecies. What else is there where else is there overlap? Is Cain literally just a risen wraith that found a way to pass his ability to rise, transcend death onto others? I don't know, but it's an interesting thought, especially considering the fact that in the old systems, I don't know about what's going on with this 5th edition stuff. I don't know what Wraith 5th edition is going to look like, if there ever is one. But in the old versions of Wraith, Wraiths could gain potence, celerity, fortitude, obfuscate, most of the basic disciplines. Are vampires just Banes incarnate? I think the War of the Yama Kings might actually suggest something along those lines. But I'm very much interested in hearing your thoughts. I want to thank Ravanna for prompting me to put a little bit more effort into studying one of the most central turning point moments in all Kindred existence. Vampire the Masquerade has made my life an interesting place because it gave me the ability to throw my imagination at something and see where it's going to stick. I am Voivode Maquette. This is our world of darkness. And if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate you to like it. If you would like to see more, I would suggest you subscribe. And if you know anybody who you think might enjoy these little talks and rants that I do from time to time, please, by all means, share. And I will see you next time when it's time to have another such discussion. Good evening.